Request to admit all our participants, please. Good afternoon and a warm welcome to all our participants present here today. We are all set to begin with our today's webinar. HR Association of India, along with Great Manager Institute of India, welcomes you all to the 2021 Dialogue Masterclass series on the topic Leading People in Current Times, the Art of Giving and Receiving Effective Feedback. Great Manager Institute conduct a Great People Manager survey in India and have come up with the list of top 100 managers, and the recognition is powered by Forbes India and Great Manager Institute, where we are fortunate to have 5 managers from the esteemed list who would be sharing their success stories, mantras, hits and misses, and achievements who are leading their team in current times. To know more about HR Association of India and Great Manager Institute, I would request all our participants to visit the link and details posted in the chat window. Request all the participants to kindly follow the webinar guidelines mentioned in the chat window. It's my privilege to introduce Mr. Varoon Rajani, founder and CEO, Blazeclan Technologies. Mr. Varoon Rajani spearheads the strategic goals of the company and is instrumental in constructing its future roadmap. He builds winning teams with a focus on delivering trustworthy and dynamic solutions to customers. He has a proven track record of running successful business while building and developing teams from scratch. He's one of the few entrepreneurs who can appreciate individuality in everyone around him. Mr. Varoon has been featured in 2020 list top 100 great managers by Great Manager Institute and Forbes. I would also like to congratulate him on these achievements. You can follow him on LinkedIn. The link for the same has been shared in the chat window. So congratulations, sir. We are super excited to have you here, and over to you.
Thank you, Peter, for the introduction, and good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to this session on the art of giving and receiving feedback. In this session, I wanted to be more interactive, and the way I've structured this session is basically primarily on my personal experience. I've not taken much from any external sources. It's just that it's just how I personally learned about giving and receiving feedback, and what has prompted me to understand the importance of feedback, and just on a growth story that I personally went through, and that's something that I wanted to share with all of you, and I hope that you find this useful. I'm just sharing my screen, and we will start in a second. To give a quick introduction about myself, I am Varoon Rajani, co-founder and CEO of a company called as Blazeclan Technologies. Blazeclan, we started 10 years back, and we are an IT consulting company, primarily focusing on providing services and solutions to our customers on public cloud computing, where we partner with Amazon Web Services or AWS, and also with Microsoft Azure. So we've been in business for 10 years. We started out as a 4-people team, and today we have more than 600 people. We're headquartered out of Pune, and then we've been growing across different geographies and territories beyond India as well. And we work with some of the top enterprises globally today, and including very well-known names in India as well. So in this session, I will be talking about feedback, as I said earlier, and why am I talking about feedback? So first and foremost, while I have co-founded this company, we've grown, we've been fairly successful over the last 10 years. It was not always the case with me. And just a few facts about me before getting into the details of the session. But I personally, I was never the best student in the class until I was one. During my whole schooling, as well as during the first 2 years of my engineering, I was never in the top 10, not even in the top 15, probably between 15 to 25. that would be my ranking. So that's not considered as a rank in India, but if you want to put me on a sequential number, then I would be not the top, in the topmost quartile of my class. But then something changed, certain feedback which was more intrinsic on seeing on how other students were performing, and what they did right and what they did wrong. After second year of engineering, in the third year of engineering, it was the first time in my life that I was top 10 in my class. And then in the final year of my engineering, I topped my class and university as well. So it gave me a lot of confidence. It gave me a lot of insights as well within myself, and also understanding the importance of doing things differently, which in college nobody gives you feedback directly, but you still learn. You have your friends who would give you, who will be brutally honest and candid with you, and that helped me realize that there are certain ways that I can succeed, and I need to focus on my strengths and do those things. Moving on from college, I landed up in one of the largest IT services company back in 2004. And it was sort of a dream job because the company was a very well-known brand. It still is a very well-known brand in India and globally as well. And it really, in the first 2 months of my project, after the training, in the initial training at the company, my manager was again very brutally honest with me, and he gave me and a friend of mine, who two of us had joined together, and we were put on the same project, and he was very brutally honest in saying the quality of hiring has gone down completely at the company. And that was kind of a shock to me, because here I was 21 years old, just came out of college a few months back, topping my class, topping my university, and then full of confidence and full of I would say a bit of arrogance as well. But coming into my first project, and my manager very candidly says, the quality of hiring is not that well. He meant to say that we were not performing at the level expected from us. And that was again an eye opener for me, and a very demotivating thing. But then I had to turn things around, and that worked as well. So I would not be as harsh to my team members, but he was really harsh, and he pulled no punches in sharing and giving his feedback to me. Then a few years down the line in the same company, 3 years down the line, I became a team lead, managing a team of around 8 to 10 people. And I was very harsh, because after I received feedback from my first manager, I turned things around again for myself, and I was really focused on delivering the best out of me. And that helped me become a team lead in 3 years. But once I was a team lead, I expected everybody to work as hard as me, and give out results to the customers as soon as possible. And I was a little harsh on my team, and that's when my manager at that point in time mentioned that I need to be a little bit more empathetic and need to go easy on my team. Not everybody performs at the same level, but everybody has their own strengths, and I need to respect that, and I need to understand that, and then I need to help my team to deliver the best based on their strengths as such. 4 years down the line, and I started this company with 3 of my other co-founders. And as a co-founder, I was attending this event back in 2011 as a startup founder, and it was a startup event. Startups were just happening in India. A big wave of startups was coming up then. And then at one of those sessions, a gentleman came and on stage and shared his story on how he had built his first company. And he gave me a mantra, which is still very true to near to my heart, which is think big or go home. And that's something that I've also tried to follow at our company as well. If we cannot think big, if we cannot grow big, if we cannot build something which is meaningful, sustainable for ourselves, for our partners, for our employees, then it's better that we don't do it and build it, right? So this may not be true for everyone, but that is something that I definitely take personally to my heart. So this is, a quick snapshot of my career, my journey. And, at each stage, at each pivotal moment in my career, I have received some feedback whether it's intrinsic or extrinsic, whether it's candid or between the lines. But that is something that has helped me to grow, that has helped me to learn something new, and that has helped me to become a better version of myself. And hence, going through this cycle again and again, going through different pivots based on the feedback that I've received, I thought it might be a good idea to share what I've learned over the last few years with my team. I've done this session internally at our company as well. And when the Great Manager Institute approached me, I said, I have this session ready, which I can definitely do it for a larger audience as well. So that's, that is what it is. And, my first manager who gave me this very harsh feedback, he gave me, he always said this one particular line, which was either there are reasons or there are results. And that is how I, personally seek feedback or evaluate myself, in the sense that anytime that I'm doing something right or something wrong, and, if I'm not getting the results, then, what am I thinking? Why am I mean, this sentence basically acts as a, an inward reflection that I take, or inward questions that I ask myself, whether what went right, what went wrong, and whether the reason that I failed, whether was that just an excuse, or whether it was, really something which was beyond my control. And that also has helped me in improving myself, and holding myself personally accountable, because the first person who needs to take accountability in your life or in your careers is yourself. So, I use this every time to evaluate my performance personally, to judge myself on how I have been performing in a particular task, and whether the results that I'm getting should have gotten there, I should have got them or not. So moving on, I have a question, and, if somebody wants to unmute yourself and answer this, but, I just want to take 2 minutes and ask one question to everybody in the audience. And the question is, what do you mean by feedback? Very simple thing. Just one question. What is feedback? If you want to put it onto the chat box, or if you want to unmute yourself and answer, please do. I want to make it interactive, and I want to also hear thoughts from everyone. Any answers, team? Anybody wants to go ahead and just say what is feedback? Okay, I have one response. Thank you, Shivangi. Okay, since I'm not getting many responses, I'll carry on. But feedback, according to Shivangi, is feedback is a constructive opinion. We have a couple of more answers as well. One from Mr. Tony. He says, open conversation, what went well, what could have been done better. One from Lily. She says, opinion on strengths and weaknesses, and thereafter work on the development. Peterson says it's an analysis based on experience. Mickey says a formal or informal response or reaction given in order to judge or assess someone over his or her performance or task done. This is a very textbook definition, and it is true. So basically, feedback is something that you share with someone to assess their performance. And it can be a positive feedback, it could be a negative feedback, but it is something where, in a formal sense, it is supposed to help the other person improve themselves, improve their performance, and as a team, improve the overall performance of the team as well as the organization. So the textbook definition of feedback is something what Mickey as well shared, which is information about reactions to a product, a person's performance of a task, etc., which is used as a basis of improvement. Now, many a times, there is a very thin line between criticism and feedback. And, in general, humans tend to be more critical, especially in our part of the world. And instead of, giving a constructive feedback that can help in others in improving, we tend to criticize people more than giving them an objective feedback that would help them to improve. So it is very important that we be very clear and we don't criticize people. Of course, there is a way, or you need to tell what is wrong or what can be improved, but that does not have to be personal. Criticism tends to be personal, whereas feedback has to be impersonal as well as objective. It does not take into consideration an individual, it takes into consideration the work done by the individual. And that's a very important differentiation that you need to keep in mind, because otherwise, if you are critical and if you get a little personal, that can have an adverse reaction of demotivating someone instead of motivating them or giving them the right direction to improve themselves. So that is something that is very important for everyone to understand while giving feedback. And the end objective of giving feedback should be to help the other person improve. So thanks everyone again for your responses. If you have any other questions, do interrupt or ask me in between. But this is something that I wanted to share about feedback. Moving forward, the next thing that I wanted to also share was, how do I look, or how do different humans look at feedback, and how is our species very, very different from the other species that we live around, different, right? So Homo sapiens learn differently from other species, and you might have seen that we learn by seeing others and replicating our behavior or reflecting our behaviors by looking at or mimicking somebody else's behavior. So that's what you would call intrinsic feedback, right? It's not somebody coming and telling you, or it's not, if you've seen young children, you would not go and tell them to do something. They will just observe and learn. That's intrinsic. You see something, you learn something, and you implement that, or you improve yourself in a particular task by looking at someone. So that's intrinsic feedback, which usually humans or Homo sapiens would learn in that manner. There is also, throughout our life, we also learn intrinsic and extrinsic feedback as well. What is extrinsic feedback? It's basically something that is given explicitly from outside to you, right? If I'm giving my subordinate a feedback, of if your parents are giving you some feedback, if your teachers are giving you some verbal or written feedback, that's extrinsic feedback. So humans learn from both. We receive both intrinsic and extrinsic feedback throughout our lifetime, and that feedback helps us evolve. That feedback basically helps us grow, improve ourselves, either by observing someone or either by hearing and listening to some teacher, to some friend, to our parents, and or from our managers for that matter, and improve ourselves. And this feedback helps us evolve. And human species is the only species in the world that continues to evolve till the last day of our lives. From the first day to the last day, we are always observing, we are always learning, we are always trying to change certain things in ourselves. But if you look at the other species in the world, they don't actually evolve beyond a certain point. I mean, they do learn certain things, but beyond a point, there is a limit to what they would learn. And that's what makes the human species different. That's what makes the Homo sapiens special. So, feedback, even beyond professional level, is very critical, and, is very important part of us if we have to continue to evolve ourselves as, as better human beings. So why do we, as individuals, so I'll break it down into two parts. One is as individuals, and the other would be as an organization or as a team. So as individuals, feedback, of course, helps us improve. That was something that came out very clearly in the few answers that we received earlier. If we give the right objective feedback to an individual, it can motivate the individual to perform better the next time they are doing a particular task. Feedback is also a tool for continuous learning. As I said, we humans continuously evolve, and it's a tool that would allow us to learn continuously and improve ourselves. Feedback helps us grow as individuals. If you learn, if you grow, if you learn, then you grow, and if you grow, then of course, that is better for yourself. And finally, feedback helps removing confirmation bias. Many a times, I have seen personally for me that if I have a line of thought, I will probably, base my decision on that particular line of thought, and then I become biased towards what I think is correct, and I'm always confirming that bias in everything I see and hear. But getting an objective feedback from somebody you want to learn from, or somebody in your team, can also help you remove certain confirmation biases and help you have a different point of view. So feedback also helps us removing confirmation bias, which is always good, because then you are having another point of view, which is again helping you to improve and evolve yourself. Why is feedback important as a team? Because as a team, when we are working together, the reason to share feedback is because the team is interdependent on each other. My success depends on how my team performs. My success as a CEO depends on how my sales team performs in selling our services and products. My success depends on how my technical team performs in delivering a particular project to our customer, or delivering a particular experience to our customer. And similarly for my team, their success depends on me, on how I'm projecting, how I'm branding, how I'm marketing our organization in front of our customers, in front of our partners. So we are as a team, we are very much interdependent, and our success is very much interdependent on each other. And hence it becomes very critical for us to ensure that we, if there is something that I see can be improved, I'm telling my team about that. I'm giving them feedback so that we are all aligned, and we start sharing we share a common objective in terms of what success means to us. And it becomes more important for us to be aligned, because if we are working as a team, we can be successful. And to be successful, we need to be having that communication of giving and receiving feedback to ensure that we are learning and improving ourselves. In a team, performance of an individual impacts the outcome, whether it's good or bad, and that happens for the entire team. So, it is always important to ensure that a healthy communication or healthy to and fro of communication and ideas and feedback is happening within the team. And for me, a good communication or a good exchange of feedback is when it's healthy, it's objective, and it is egoless. There is no ego involved, and everybody is talking about improvement as a team and not taking anything personally. If I'm giving somebody a feedback, that has to be for the improvement of the individual and hence the team, and not to demean or demotivate anyone. So, as a team, it is very important to be aligned. As a team, it is very important to ensure that the feedback is timely, it's objective, and it is something that is helping everybody in the team to improve as individuals or as a collective group of people, so that we can achieve our common objective. So, that is because winning, because as a team, if all of us do well, all of us will succeed. If one of us fails, then everybody will fail. And it is extremely important that we try and avoid those kind of situations. So this is one of my favorite quotes, which is winning is a team sport. And just continuing on, why is it important for us to give feedback or receive feedback as a team? Because winning is a team sport. If you want to win, you have to work as a team. In today's world, in an interconnected, interdependent world, any company, any team that you are a part of, our success depends on each other. And if we have to win, we have to work as a team. And winning is definitely a team sport. So, the next two slides, I will focus on how do I give feedback as well as how do I receive feedback. And, these are some of the points that I have learned over a period of time. which is something that how do I put it? In the last 17, 18 years of my professional career, I have seen people, I've observed people, I've learned from my team, I've learned from my managers, and just trying to put my own personal experience out here in front of all of you. So, the first thing in giving feedback is, be clear in giving feedback. Ensure that the other person has understood it well. Many a times, especially in our culture in India, we tend not to be clear enough in our communication. We try if there is some bad feedback, we try to massage it a bit so that the other person does not take it personally or doesn't feel bad about it. But whether that is the right way to do things or not, it depends. But what it many a times does is that we tend to miss out on the critical messaging of our feedback, which is never good, right? So when you are giving feedback, be very clear, be very precise in terms of what went right and what can be improved, and ensure that maybe ask a question again to the person that you are giving feedback to, and just ask if they have understood it well and that you both of you are on the same page or not, right? That's very critical when giving feedback. Try and give oral feedback. Written feedback may be interpreted differently, and this is very true, especially when we are all working remotely. So many a times what happens is, we tend to write emails and we tend to give feedbacks in emails or insert maybe in some systems, and which may not be taken very well, or which may be interpreted differently. There could be certain sentences which could have two meanings, and you wanted to say something but the other person understands it in a different way. And hence, if there is any critical feedback, my recommendation or my way of doing it is to give oral feedback, whether it's in person or on a call, but give oral feedback which A, makes you more human, but B, also clears out any ambiguity that might be lost in a written email. So, anytime you are trying to give a critical feedback, try to give it orally on a call or in person. The third thing is, be timely in giving feedback. Immediate feedback is important. You don't really have to wait for your appraisal cycles in your companies, whether it's a 6-monthly cycle or a annual cycle. But if you have some feedback, some critical feedback, just pick up the phone and give that feedback, or set up a meeting, and give that feedback. Because if it is something that can impact you negatively, you don't want to wait for 6 months and then give that feedback, because by that time it might be late, and the team might have suffered in terms of their goals, or individual might have suffered in terms of their own personal goals. So it is important to give timely feedback. I personally try and do it. If I think something is not right, I would not wait for the next one-on-one or the next appraisal cycle. I would rather just want to give a call, understand what's happening, and then give my feedback, and try to course correct immediately. Be empathetic. This is very easy to say but very difficult to implement many a times, especially for people who are introverts, or many a times people who are not, who have who do not have very strong EQ. But being empathetic here would mean just to try and understand, or try to view a particular problem from the other person's point of view to whom you are giving the feedback, because that matters. Many a times somebody is not performing not because they are not capable enough of doing things, or they do not want to do things, but it's just probably they are at a point in time in their personal life where things might not be going right for them, or especially during COVID, when somebody or the other is not well in the family, and it is impacting somebody's performance. So be empathetic, understand what's going wrong, and then give your feedback accordingly. The next point that I try to do is give actionable feedback. It doesn't your feedback should not stop saying you did not do a particular task well. It should be saying, yes, this did not go according to plan, and these are the 1, 2, 3 things that you could do to improve on that particular task the next time you're doing it. So be very actionable, help them or guide them in a way that they can go back and implement certain things which can help that individual to improve upon their performance. The other thing is, don't be personal, be objective. And this is something that I mentioned at the beginning of my presentation as well. Being personal does not help. If you have a feedback, make that feedback about a particular task or about a particular thing that the person worked upon, and not about that person. And this is important because, again, you have to ensure that you are differentiating the person from the task, and the task did not go well. Why it did not go well is something that you need to understand and then help the other person improve. Again, not everybody, everybody wants to improve, and criticizing a person is not going to help them in any which ways. In fact, it will just demotivate them, and they might switch off. But if you make it about a task, it will give them a very clear outline on what they have to do and where they went wrong and how they can improve. There is a saying where I heard it a few years back, saying, hate the game, not the player. So if the game is going wrong, focus on what can be improved to worked upon to improving the game, but not the individual or not the player. And finally, this is a cliche that all of you might have heard at least once or twice in your career, which is appreciate in public, but criticize in private. And this is very important. If you have something good to say it, but say it in front of the larger audience, where it makes the other person feel valued in front of the larger audience. But if you have anything critical to say, or if you have any negative feedback to say, always do it on a one-on-one session rather than doing it publicly, because that is again going to demotivate the other individual. So these are some of the points that guidelines that I follow while giving feedback. The next slide talks about on how do I receive feedback. In between, just taking a 10-second break and asking everyone if you have any questions, if you want to share any points, happy to do that right now, or we can, I can take questions at the end of the session as well. All right, no questions. Going on to the next slide, where I'm talking about how do I receive feedback. And this is very important because, while I started as a software engineer, today as the CEO of an organization with 600 people, my personal position has changed. And many a times people are, when I was a software engineer, everybody would come and give me feedback, my team leads, my peers, my manager, and so on. But, as a CEO, it's very difficult for me to get other people talking and be critical of me, because there is always certain apprehension that comes in certain individuals, while certain individuals don't have that apprehension of going and opening up to in front of a CEO. So there has been a lot of things that I have learned as a CEO in terms of getting feedback, and one of that is being humble. I cannot brag about things, or I cannot be arrogant, because arrogance will turn off people. And if I'm not hearing critical feedback from my team, then as a CEO I may fail, which would then impact my entire team. So one thing that I've learned is being confident but being humble. So I don't want to be arrogant, but I want to be confident. And while I'm being confident, I also want to be humble. And that is something, that's a term called there is a term called confident humility that I've learned over the last few years. It comes from an organizational psychologist called as Adam Grant. He's I think a Wharton professor, and he talks about confident humility, which means according to him is being secure enough in your knowledge to recognize your ignorance, and secure enough in your strengths to acknowledge your weaknesses. And this is very important. while taking feedback, especially if you are in a senior position where you have to be confident, but you also need to know that you might not have all the answers, and you might have limitations in your own knowledge. But it also is being secure enough to understand that you have your own strengths, and you have your own weaknesses, and the feedback that you receive will only help you improve upon your strengths and improve upon your weaknesses as well. So confident humility is something that I try to practice, and that helps me in being humble, yet being self-assured while I am talking to somebody, and not take anything on my ego. The second point why I keep in mind while receiving feedback is, my assumptions can be wrong, and I would like to clarify. I spoke about confirmation bias earlier, and confirmation bias leads to assumptions, which I would always, think is right. I would, make assumptions saying, hey, if there is a customer in the US, they are going to behave in a certain way. But it may be wrong, because each company, each individual, each customer might behave differently. So that's an assumption that I've made. But then if I hear it from somebody else, instead of just ignoring it, I would like to clarify and understand what the other person is trying to say, and just understand whether my confirmation bias or my assumption is right or wrong. And then if I'm wrong, admit it, and change my perspective and move forward. The third thing is never have an ego, right? If I carry an ego, it's me who is going to lose out at the end. And many a times we ignore certain feedback. Many a times we not listen to some feedback because of our ego. It's not because we are right or wrong, and we in many cases know, but it's just the insecurity or our ego which stops us from admitting a particular mistake or a fault. And if we do that, we are not opening ourselves, we are not being humble enough. And at the end of the day, if I'm not open to take feedback, I would be losing out in certain ways. The fourth point is, of course, I take this as something as a guideline, which is feedback is a perception, and everybody has their own point of view, right? So if I come and tell you that, hey, you did it in this way, you did this thing in this way, you could have done that in that way, but that's my perception of doing things or looking at things. And I might be wrong, because your point of view could be different. You did a particular thing because of a certain circumstance that you were in. And, then it's my perception which is wrong, and you might want to clarify. So, feedback at the end of the day is perception on how I look at you, and what my feedback is to you, and then how do I communicate that to you. So be objective while receiving feedback as well, saying this is an assumption that the other person has made, or this is a perception that the other person has made, and have an open dialogue to clear out that perception if you feel that is an incorrect perception. Finally, the last 2 points are having an open mind. I can learn from every interaction that I make, and I'll talk about that, in next slide, from somebody who is very close to me and how I learn from them. But I can learn from every interaction, right? That's something that you need to keep in mind. And if you keep that in mind, if you have an open mind, you will see both, you'll receive a lot of both intrinsic as well as extrinsic feedback to learn. And finally, I seek feedback every time I am doing a one-on-one, or if I am doing any session, or if I am taking any team meetings, I'm always open or asking openly about feedback. Hey, do you have any feedback for me? Do you have anything that would help us improve on certain areas on what we are discussing, and so on. So I'm always open to seeking feedback. That is because I know if I hear different perspective, if I hear different opinions, that might at the end of the day help me improve personally as a professional and as the CEO of the organization. So these are some of the things that I keep in mind while receiving feedback. So that was it. The next slide, I wanted to talk about is the things that I learned from my son, right? I have an 8-year-old boy. who is very active, who asks me a lot of questions. And I mentioned that you learn from every interaction. And there are a few things that after becoming a father, has helped me in understanding the basics of human psychology. And that's what I wanted to share and talk about as well. One thing that I've learned about from my son is, immediate feedback works the best. If I appreciate him, or if I tell him something while he's doing the task, that impacts him the most, rather than saying something after the thing is over. So immediate feedback works the best. The second thing I've learned, and this is something that works very well for a 3-year-old, or for a 30-year-old, or for a 50-year-old individual as well, which is appreciation is a great motivator. The moment I tell my son, shabash, you have done a good job, that excites him a lot. And the next time he is putting in additional efforts, or he is trying to do a certain thing in a better way, at least in front of me, to get that appreciation. So appreciation works as a great motivator. And that is something that, I honestly was not aware of. But, the moment I saw that in my son, saying, hey, well done, I would just see a different level of motivation in him, and lot more enthusiasm in him in doing certain things that he was undertaking in front of me. The third thing is, asking him questions helps him find answers. That works better than just giving orders, right? So while this may or may not directly relate to feedback, but many a times, as managers, we tend to ask or tell our teams to do certain things, and then they may not follow it up with what you have said, because many a times it's as simple as that. Giving an order does not work. But if you ask questions, or if you try help them to open up their mind, it might work better. And a very simple example, with my son, when he was 4 or 5 years old, and when we were putting him, and when we were building a habit in him about brushing his teeth, a very simple activity that you would do twice a day. If I tell him, go and do go and brush your teeth once you wake up, he would give me all kinds of excuses, being the 4-year-old lazy boy that he was. Oh, I don't want to do it, I'll do it later, and all those things. But if I tell him, and then I stopped saying him just or asking him to just go and brush his teeth, I would rather than took a different approach, and which was, hey, my son's name is Harsh, and I would say, Harsh, please go and do your brush. He would say no. Then I would say, why do you not want to do it? Do you know what happens when you don't brush your teeth? And then he would say, all right, Papa, if I don't brush my teeth, I'll have cavities in my teeth. So what happens when you have cavities in your teeth? He would say, Papa, it will give me a lot of pain. Do you want to suffer in pain? No, Papa, I don't want to suffer in pain. Then do you want to brush? Do you want to brush your teeth? And he would say, yes, I would want to brush my teeth, right? So yeah, it's a slightly longer conversation, but the other thing that I've learned is asking questions and helping other people think that it's their own idea, or giving them a reason to do a certain task is a better motivator than just giving them an order of doing a particular task. And this is something that I have seen in my teams working as well. The same principles of human psychology, the same principles of appreciation, asking questions, giving timely feedback works for a 3-year-old boy and works for a 30-year-old software engineer in the same way. So these are some of the things that I have learned by observing my son after becoming a father, and that has helped me become a better CEO and helped me give better feedback to my peers and subordinates as well. And this is the last slide from me today. Parting thoughts from myself, is always seek feedback. Don't assume things. If you have any doubts, please clarify them, ask questions. Nobody is going to, as somebody has said, there are no stupid questions. Just ask questions that will help you improve. Seek feedback. Seeking feedback is investing on yourself. Don't think that seeking feedback will make you look stupid, or make you look ignorant. No, seeking feedback is a way to invest in yourself. You would learn something that will help you improve. Seeking feedback from your team members, especially from your peers, shows that you have ownership of what you are doing, and that generates trust in your team. If I'm open enough and going and asking someone about feedback, that person will feel that I am taking my work seriously, and that will help build trust within the team about me. Seeking feedback shows that you care for your team, that you are not always about your results, but you are also seeking feedback to improve your performance, which is going to help your team. And you care that your performance is going to make an impact in the team's goals. And finally, seeking feedback helps you grow as an individual, and will help you become a better professional, a better human being. So everyone, this was what I had to share, and I will just close it off with one more quote that I like very much, which is, "The juice for personal growth is feedback." This was quoted by Mr. Ramcharan, who is a very well-known thought leader or a management guru. And I agree with it. The juice for personal growth is feedback. As Ken Blanchard, another management guru, said, feedback is the breakfast of champions. So always try to seek feedback, and while giving feedback, be very objective, be very timely, and have an open culture where within your team you are exchanging feedback to allow yourself and your teams to win. So with that, that's the end of my session. I hope, Peter, we are well within the timelines. I'm open to answer any questions that anybody has, and happy to take field any questions.
Thank you so much, Varoon. Yes, indeed, we are in time. Before we take up any further questions, we'll be capturing the feedback from our participants over today's session. So we'll be running a poll. We would request all our participants to kindly share your feedback on our today's session. While you're doing so, we would request all the participants to post your questions pertaining to our today's session in the chat window. Our speaker will be happy to address them.
Yeah, immediate feedback definitely works.
Absolutely. And once again, I thank all our participants for joining our session today. We have received a lot of inquiry about the e-certificate offered by HRAI. You can claim your e-certificate by sharing your details. When I say details, that is the name and session attended in an email to the email ID provided in the chat window. Please ensure you send these details to us by the end of this month. We will email the e-certificates to you based on details received.
So I have a question here for you, Varoon. So whenever we talk about feedback, the tendency often is to soften the tough feedback. So do you think that is effective?
Many a times that is, but if you are being objective about the feedback and not getting personal, then it doesn't matter. But if you tend to get personal, then of course critical feedback is something that will not go well with the person who is receiving feedback. But if you have trust in your team, I think there is no need to soften the feedback. If something is bad, and you need to work on it. So that's my philosophy. But yeah, for that you need to ensure that A, you are not personal, and B, as a manager or as a peer, you have enough trust factor within the team for anybody to accept what you say in the right spirit.
So I do have one question out here. How best can we convert the opportunity of giving feedback in bringing positive change in an individual?
So sorry, I didn't understand the question, Peter. If you could,
I'll repeat it once again. How best we can convert the opportunity of giving feedback, because sometimes when we give feedback, as you said, that like we need to be optimistic in the intention so that we do not demoralize anyone. So how can we convert that opportunity of giving feedback in bringing a positive change in an individual? Definitely when we share a feedback, it is something which we intend to see better in that individual, correct?
Yes. So, we, how do I put it? If in your team, you, as I said, if there is trust and if everybody is aligned to the same vision, that is something that you need to be very clear about. Saying, Peter, this is our team's objective. This is what we want to achieve. This is where, I think there is an area of improvement for you as an individual, which will impact the team in A, B, and C way. You are then talking about the objectives of the team. And since you are talking about the objectives of the team and how an individual's performance will impact the overall objective of the team, you are separating the individual as an individual, in the sense you're not making it personal, but you are definitely, giving that, how do I put it, aligning that individual's limitations or faults or whatever has not gone well to the team's goal, and then making him a part of a bigger vision, or making her a part of the bigger goal as a team, which then I believe would help that individual to improve without taking it personally, and then aligning that individual to the team's goals.
Thank you so much, Varun. Great response. I have here a question from Lily. There are managers who are friendly with peers, subordinates of the same team. As a manager, how do we give critical feedback to such employees and ensure that the relationship is not affected?
So it goes back to your question as well, Peter, where it is not about the individual. It is about saying, what went right. What do we need to do as a team, and what went wrong in a particular task, and how that task can be improved. And in that way, you can, improve or make it more objective for that individual to, help and work on a particular feedback. Even if you are friendly, not friendly, that does not matter when you're talking in terms of, when you're talking in the context of your teams, instead of talking in context of an individual.
Great. I believe that has answered Lily's question. She has acknowledged the same. Okay. Now, when we talk about receiving feedback, correct? We have to have that confident humility, as you mentioned, correct? At times, acceptance becomes a challenge within oneself. And when we talk about the little part of that ego, okay, of superiority or seniority that is there in an individual, at times it becomes difficult to acknowledge the change suggested by an individual, maybe your subordinate or anything. How can one bring in those change within themselves so that they improvise and take it as a constant learning? As you also mentioned, that I can learn with every interaction that I have. So that aspects to imbibe with, to learn that, how can one implement that, and how can one follow those practice?
It is becoming, being humble, and being humble does not come naturally to many of us, for sure. I definitely had to work a lot on it. And, one thing that helped me become humble was the multiple failures that I've had in my life, saying, I'm not perfect and I can go wrong anytime. So just admitting or just opening up to the fact that you can be wrong can help you become more humble, and then hence help you be more open while receiving feedback. And everybody can fail, right? And Sachin Tendulkar can get out on a zero, or Ratan Tata can fail on the Tata Nano, or there are multiple various different examples of people who we put on a very high pedestal have failed as well. And all of those people who are at a very high pedestal, who have been very, very successful, one thing that you will definitely see is they accept failure as normal. And they would not be very arrogant, right? Everybody is very soft spoken. Everybody is very normal human being. We humans would make mistake. So just opening up to the fact that you can be wrong, you can fail, makes it very easy for you to, listen to somebody else's critical feedback and accept that, yes, I can be wrong, and there could be a better way of doing certain things. And it's just that. But our human nature always does not uh, accept that, right? Many a times, and especially, uh, I mean, I would not say especially, but many a times we've been brought up in such a way where, we are never wrong, right? And we grow in a very protected environment where, our mistakes are being ignored, whereas we have been appreciated for the smallest of the things. And that does not work. That gives us a false sense of how do I say, invincibility, which is not right. So everybody can fail. Just be open. If you know you can fail, you would be open to taking feedback.
Brilliant answer. Acceptance to failure. That's something which once you learn from is where it will help you grow. In the same line, we have a question that I have from Mr. Neeraj, I believe. Being receptive and open-minded is very important for receiving feedback. How does one take care that he doesn't fall prey to critic, which generally we tend to in this part of the world? At times, feedback, when you take it too much personally, that may also lead to your downfall, where you start thinking negatively on yourself, or harsh, or you
See,
can think hard on yourself.
yes. So even while receiving feedback, I mentioned that, feedback is a perception that the other person has of you, right? And or as of your task. So, even while receiving feedback, if you believe that somebody is going to be critical, and if somebody gets personal with you, you would want to ignore that feedback. Try to clarify in that feedback session whether, what you can do to improve. But if the individual who is giving feedback is being personal and talking about you as an individual and not of the task, then you should try to ignore, which is not very easy. Again, honestly, if somebody makes a comment, while that comment is not right, but it still, puts you, I mean, how do I say, it does disturb you, or it might, demotivate you. But you need to learn to ignore things when people get personal on you, unless it is objective, unless it is something that you have done wrong. If people are commenting on that, that's right, but otherwise try to ignore it. Not very easy, but you have to learn to have that self emotional control about, if somebody is personal, that does not make you a bad person. It's just that person's perception, and you have full rights to ignore it.
Thank you so much, Varun. We have our next question, that is from Tony. He's saying the pigmentation effect specifically describes situations in which a manager's positive opinion on performance will lead to better performance actually occurring. Just wanted to know your thoughts on the same. Should all managers focus more on positives?
Should all managers focus on positives? Is that the question?
Yes.
Definitely, we should focus on positives. We need to celebrate all the wins that we have, right? But also it is important that we don't ignore the shortcomings of our team or shortcoming of the task that we have performed. It is important that, those things are highlighted as well, and highlighted very clearly. While appreciation is to be done, definitely it motivates people. But, that does not mean that, any shortcomings are ignored. You have to be open about that, and you need to talk about that as well.
Great. Thank you so much, Varun. Great insights, beautiful quotes shared by you. Key takeaways: give actionable feedback and do not get personal. Very apt point that you brought forward. Appreciate in public but criticize in private. Receive feedback with confident humility. You can learn from every interaction. Great takeaways. It's been a pleasure being with you today, and I'm sure our participants have had a lot to learn and take away from this session. This would have not been possible without Great Manager Institute, where we are all privileged to be working with them on this series. Though we all know about Great Manager Institute, I would want to welcome Ms. Shivangi Shinari, Client Engagement Manager, Great Manager Institute, to share a few words about Great Manager Institute.
Thank you. Thank you, Peterson. Thank you, Varun, for such an insightful session. So one learning I think all of us have had from this is when Varun began with his original journey to what he is today. He is a great people manager. He features in our top 100 great people managers list. So all of us, if we try to connect well with our teams, to develop our teams better, to inspire action, each one of us can be a great people manager. That's something I think all of us learned from this. And at Great Manager Institute, this is what we do. We help individuals manage their teams better. So I am just going to share a link to our platform in the chat. So any of you, if you want to explore further on these lines, happy to connect with you offline. Over to you.
Thank you, Shivangi, for letting us know about Great Manager Institute, and thanks for the benefits extended to HRAI members. I once again thank our dear speaker and Shivangi for joining us today. Do join us for our next masterclass tomorrow on the topic Leading People in Current Times, a session by Ms. Bansi Raja, Chief Happiness Officer, Gozu, on the 25th of August, 2021. I request you to kindly register for the event at the link mentioned in the chat window. Also to join the Dialogue 2021 WhatsApp chat group through the invite link shared in the chat window. That's it from us today. See you soon. Stay safe, take care, and bye for now. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Thank you, Shyam. We can hereby conclude with our today's session.